Hello everybody, it's Max McAllister from Traction Dynamics, back with a video today about tire pressure monitoring systems and our attempts to trick it. So this started out, there were some owners that were interested in having some sort of way to bypass or trick the tire pressure monitoring system not to go off if their tires are set to lower pressures than the sensors would like. So there's two groups of people there. So some are that wanted to run a lower pressure than in the front tire, or actually in both tires. But so when you try to run a lower pressure in the front tire, the sensor is set so close to Honda's recommended 36 psi that you really can't lower it, or the tire pressure monitoring system will alert you and your lights will go off on your dash. So then there's another group, which is the maniacs who put car tires on the back of their motorcycle. So because the car tires run lower pressure, they're inherently stuck with a tire pressure monitor light that goes off forever, effectively, while they're doing that. So anyway, I wanted to see if we could trick it or come up with some sort of invention. And basically, the way it works, there's a sensor in your tire. Most of you are probably aware of this that have a gold wing. There's a sensor in each tire, transmits the pressure of the tire to a system on the bike, and that you get two different warnings for your gold wing. If you come over here, I'm going to show you. When you boot your bike up, you'll see both lights come on. There's a picture of a flat tire, and then a picture that says TPMS below it. Okay, those are two different warnings. The picture of the tire with the exclamation point will come on when your air pressure gets lower than what we can tell from various owners, somewhere between 32 to 35 psi. It'll trip the system. So Honda recommends 36 in the front and 41 psi in the rear, and so you can see it doesn't take much air pressure loss for that front one to trigger. So us playing with ours here, it's like I said, ours it seems to be about 33 psi, something like that, and it'll trip. So we would like to be able to, test our bike with 32 or 30 psi in the front tire, but we can't do that without this nuisance light coming on. So my first idea was to take the sensors and put them in a little box and pressurize the box so that the bike thought that the sensor still had pressure in it. So we made up a little aluminum coffin and put our sensor in it, took the sensors out of the wheel, put them in the box, pressurized the box, and that didn't work. So the first thing we found out is each of these sensors, actually real quick I'll show you the parts. This is kind of a complete assembly from a 2018 valve stem and tire pressure monitoring monitor. That's the actual monitor itself, and these are the parts for the bike. Now the valve stem is just a valve stem, and it doesn't, it can be oriented anywhere. You could aim it anywhere you want to, it doesn't matter. So it's just comprised of the valve with an O-ring and a nut that bolts it to the rim. Now you could take the sensor off, it doesn't matter, it's no effect. This is just a valve stem. Then they add this little gear wheel, rubber interlock thing, snaps over the nut, and then the tire pressure monitor goes on. It kind of also has some mating teeth. This they need oriented in the direction of the rim, in the center line of the rim, and I'll explain why. And then this is a nut that holds the sensor onto the valve stem. So anyway, these have a little watch battery in them that's impregnated down in the sealed electronics of the tire pressure monitor. And what Honda's done is they have a little accelerometer in this, and it has a timer. So after it's a period of inactivity, somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes, this turns off and goes to sleep. Then when your wheel begins to roll, the acceleration of the wheel triggers it, wakes it up. and then starts it transmitting again. And they do this to extend the battery life. So these things are expensive. I think they were $150 or each, or I don't know. It was expensive. I think it was $150 or something. And so if it was transmitting all the time, the battery would die quickly. So imagine if you parked your motorcycle for the winter and this transmitted all winter, it would be a waste. So they did make it fancy in that aspect, but also not serviceable. So if the battery dies, you're supposed to buy another sensor. Anyway, certainly seems like it would have been better to make a cheaper unit that didn't do all of that and did just transmit all the time. Because how long does a Goldwing tire last? You know, certainly not forever. So anyway, that's a different topic altogether. So we tried this, and obviously because we weren't able to accelerate it in anything, it wouldn't wake up. And so since it wouldn't wake up, it wouldn't transmit. So we kind of figured out right away that that was going to be a bust. The next thing we studied was what it took would it transmit to the bike if we just carried it around. And so we tried just transporting it with the bike, but after a certain amount of time, since it doesn't sense the sensor, then it will trip the TPMS system light. So the TPMS system, where it just says the letters TPMS, that means there's something wrong with the system, right? Whereas the other one is, again, an alert that the tire pressure is low. If the tire pressure is low, you can simply read it on the menu at the side. By using the select key, you'll see the moving arrow there goes down, and then you hit the set key, and you can see the front and rear tire pressures. Now you just get those blank bars if it's searching for this. If it's looking for this, you're going to get those 3 bars. Once it finds it, the bars will flash a few times, and then it'll come up and read the pressure. So we did get it to read 0. And we did that then we simply wanted to see what if it was being activated, how it was activated. So we just taped it to the rim with a piece of gaffer's tape, just taped it there, drove off. And of course, right away, that motion woke the sensor up. So we studied the wiring diagram. A buddy of mine, some of you know, is Fred Harmon. He's a real electronics whiz. He studied the wiring diagram and saw we were looking at how could we just turn off the light. But the actual warning light is part of the CAN bus system, so any attempt to trick that is would result in crashing the CAN bus system, so that's not going to work. While it doesn't help people like me who would want to run a lower tire pressure in their front tire, it is possible for a car tire guy, if they wanted to find a way to take the rear sensor out of their rear wheel, put it opposite of the valve stem of the front wheel, and epoxy it in place on the rim, if you wanted to do that. So then you would have your rear tire pressure sensor in the front tire, and it would be under sufficient pressure at all times to allow you to run the car tire and not trip the TPMS monitoring light. So that's one possibility. The next one, which we haven't tried yet, but we're going to try, and the last thing we haven't tried, the only thing we haven't tried is, we're just going to put have a decorative decal cut that fits into the dash there. So this dash does come apart. We haven't figured out if we can get it apart without taking the whole dash off the bike. So it does, if you pull these, I know the speaker trim away, this bezel comes off, and then there's a series of screws that hold the lens on. If we can get the lens off pretty easily, then we'll be able to have a custom die-cut decal made that'll cover up the tire pressure monitor light, and that'll be the cure. You'll still be able to read your pressures at that point, read the actual pressure just by checking it with the dash. But what people don't want, obviously, is a flashing yellow light sticking out in their face for the whole time they own their Goldwing. So anyway, that was our attempts to trick the system. We were unsuccessful, so you can't always win. But we tried, and we'll let you know if once we try and take the dash apart how hard that is, and if that's easy enough to do, we might come up with a little decal or something. We'll sell you in the mail for $3 or something, just so you have something that looks nicer than a piece of electrical tape stuck over your dash. So anyway, that's Max. That's our fun for the day with tire pressure monitoring. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and we'll be back with more videos in the future.